get a little indicator. There you go. You're live, and now Sandeepa will take the link for the page and put it on CCJPA. Perfect. And then you can initiate your recording, Jackie, whenever you feel like it, when the meeting's about to start. We'll get a little indicator. There you go.
Okay.
You're live, and now Sandeepa will take the link for the page and put it on CCJPA. Yeah, so we're just hearing the delay right there on the actual YouTube stream.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Enjoy the meeting. I'm sure you'll have a blast.
All right. See you, Sandeepa. So, Jackie, for this meeting, I'm happy to hang out for the whole thing on the side, or whatever you would like me to do.
Enjoy it.
Travis, you're good.
Okay.
I wouldn't do that to you.
Okay, if you have a little bit of time later today and want to chat about the first floor item and whether to go board or screen.
I wouldn't do that to you. Okay, so I'm hearing all this reverb.
Okay, if you have do you have the YouTube page open later today and want to chat about a first floor item? Double check if you have the CCJPA website or YouTube open.
Reverb.
Okay, do you have the YouTube page open today?
Let's see.
Double check if you have the CCJPA website or YouTube open.
Okay, I see. Let's see.
All right, audio check, audio check. See if we still get any echo.
Thanks, Travis.
All right, you're welcome.
The person calling in with last 4 digits of their phone number 5634, are you a director? Could the person on the line, phone number 510-817-5634, identify yourself, please?
That may be a conference room. I'll text Mimi and see if she's just dialed.
Okay, good. Because, I mean, yeah, this is, I had a director last time that just had his phone number.
Okay, okay. Let me check with Mimi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, Mimi, we can hear you. If you're dialed in on just a telephone, we can't promote you to a panelist.
I can't promote that number to a panelist.
Okay, this is fine. The way you have it right now is fine.
Okay, we can.
So is this your cell phone?
No, this is the Polycom phone in conference room 1950. So I have here Leo, Rob from CCJPA, and then Bob and Gina will be joining in person.
So if the audio is not promoted, how does that work, Travis?
We just go ahead and leave their audio unmuted the way we have it now, and then they would physically mute and unmute at will. And Mimi, correct me if I'm wrong, but you may be then bringing in other devices that we're going to use individual cameras and everyone's just going to talk on the same phone?
Yes.
Okay.
So everyone will, those who will be joining in person in this conference room will have their own laptops when they're presenting, but they will be muted except for this Polycom phone.
Okay, that'll give everybody individual cameras and no echo. That'll work.
Correct.
We just leave this. I renamed it Polycom Conference 1950.
Yeah.
Or
Thank
that's
you.
Jackie did that. I think we did it at the same time. I was like, that's not the lamplight did.
We've been working together too long.
Thank you, guys. I'm
All
going
right.
to mute.
All right, so Jackie, it seems like all the stuff is taken care of and it's not going to be any more conference room connections. So I'll slip out, but text me or call me if you need anything.
Thanks, Travis.
All right, see ya.
Good morning, Rob.
Rob, do you have any other speakers beside yourself that need to be advanced?
Yes, we're going to have the other people are Camille Zhao, so she's going to call in remotely. Shannon, hang on, I got to get the name from Caltrans. Shannon Simons from Caltrans. And Jim Allison will be calling in remotely. And then the last is Kat Relucio. She's just on for consent if anything gets pulled from consent. So she's probably not going to be, but you should have her elevated as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Jackie, can you also add Leo Sanchez as a panelist?
Will do. Leo, in the future, add your last name. I didn't know if that was just a person from the public. Thank you.
I hope that train's not leaving the station too soon. Don Saylor's going to be run over.
Feels like every other board meeting I've been to this week, about to be run over.
Isn't that the truth? My God.
And Director Rayburn was obviously out this morning on one of our busy platforms, so we're glad to see our crowds coming back.
Where are the back-offs, maybe?
Oh, that's the future platform in Fresno.
Okay,
Oh.
okay.
Well, that should be interesting. Is that a section of rail that's right over your shoulder? Is that what that is?
Well, that's Governor Brown signing the rail
Oh, I see. Okay.
on the groundbreaking for the high-speed rail.
Oh, that'll be historic.
Yeah.
That's
Are we already through the recall and Brown's back in office?
Yeah. That would be a neat trick. I wouldn't put it past him, actually.
Well, you could say that again.
Well, I was juggling. I was thinking about putting up the Oakland Coliseum again today. It's kind of appropriate, but I decided I would vary it a little bit, dig into the train archives.
Yeah, that's a good one. Kind of the opposite of the promontory golden spike thing. You start at the middle and work out.
Right. Yeah, start in the middle.
That way you can be sure it ties.
Yeah. Maybe they just lucked out with the golden spike. You know?
It was a total accident.
Yeah.
What are the chances?
Well, what's always confused me is, of course, the engine that was coming from the east had the straight flute stack, coal powered, and the engine from the west had was capable of capturing burning embers from the wood. And so what fuel would they use if they continued on?
There's a novel in there.
Yeah, big questions.
Deep thoughts. Well, this is great. How are we doing on quorum so far? We're about there.
We don't have any 2/3 votes, so.
Not quite. We
Not
only
quite.
have 4 of you.
Just 4. Hey, Jackie, how you doing?
Fine. Good morning.
I was thinking about sneaking into the new BART headquarters office or the boardroom and checking out what it looks like. Yeah.
Good
Is it
luck.
decorated?
No.
No. Okay. So we'll do a photo op later there.
Well, don't go today because they're testing the fire alarms. I wouldn't recommend it.
Oh.
Luckily, we're doing this meeting from Lakeside today.
All right.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Oh, look at that, Jim. Is that a Lockheed Electra? I can't hear you, Jim.
No, it's not. I'll give you a hint. It's one of the first presidential aircrafts. And the Columbine. So that'll give you a hint.
Wow.
What president you think?
Eisenhower.
You got it. Yeah, that's
Oh.
Eisenhower. That's Eisenhower's Air Force One.
But it sure. Okay, so it's not a Lockheed Electra,
No, it's
not the three tails.
it's a Constellation. The Electra only had a single tail. This is
The Constellation.
Constellation,
Yes,
C-121.
that's it.
Yeah, C-121 Constellation.
They had a whole, well, my father was stationed at McClellan and back in the late 50s, early 60s. And that was the troop transport.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a hot aircraft.
Yeah, it was.
Leo has a good
So
background.
we're only at 6. We need 3 more.
Okay.
We need more shots with the Chargers in them. I note we're now at 10.
Yeah, we're at 10. So yeah, that's a good idea. We'll get some of those.
Yeah. Are we, I note that the, what are they, F-59s are all ending up in Metra.
Well, if ours are not. So we are required to decommission those as part of the funding source.
Oh.
Yeah. And we do have 13 RSVPs today, and I do know Director Saltzman will be a few minutes late today.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Good morning, everybody. In 1 minute, we'll begin. All right. Thank you. It's good to see you all this morning. A beautiful day. It's going to be a little hot, but we're about to begin the June 16th meeting in 2021, the Capital Corridor Joint Powers Authority Board of Directors. This meeting is being recorded. Clerk, could you please call us to order? I'll call us to order. Could we please do the roll call, and then we'll do Pledge of Allegiance after that.
Good morning. Chair
Good morning.
Saylor,
Present.
Vice Chair Perales,
Here.
Director Allen, Director Duffy, Director Frericks,
Here.
Director Gilmore,
Here.
Director Holmes, Director Howdeschelt.
Excuse me. I'm Sandy Amara. I'm.
You're the alternate. I got it.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Howe, Director Lee,
Here.
Director McPartland,
Here.
Director Miller,
Here.
Director Saltzman, Director Price, Director Rayburn,
Here.
Director Spearing,
Present.
Director Amara.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Vice Chair Perales, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Thank you. If you may please rise. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to let you know that it looks like, if all things go as we hope they will, that this will be our last completely virtual meeting, and our September 15th meeting will include in-person attendance at the new BART headquarters in Oakland. So we're looking forward to seeing that new facility and using those resources for conducting our business. This is a virtual meeting though, and all speakers, including our board and staff, we ask that you announce your name as you begin to speak. It's being live streamed and recorded. You can watch it at www.capitalcorridor.org/ccjpa-board/. You can download the agenda and presentation materials at that same website. Please mute your microphones when you're not speaking so that we can avoid background noises. For public participants, your microphones are automatically muted. If you wish to speak on an agenda item, please dial *9 to virtually raise your hand when public comment is announced. That'll be I believe it's item 7, and later in our meeting will be the opportunity for public comment. Comments which were received via email by 2:00 Tuesday, yesterday, June 15th, have already been provided to the board and will be included as a permanent part of the meeting record. Comments received after that time will be provided during or following the meeting. Board members, in order to reduce confusion throughout the meeting, when it's time for director's remarks, I'll call for board member comments or questions. If you'd like to speak, please virtually raise your hand, either by using the Zoom video. Raise your hand by clicking on raise hand in the bottom right area. If you're participating in the meeting via the telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand. You can also just do this, and I'll be watching the screen to try to see if I can detect you. And I'm sure that we'll probably figure out how to do that. Vice Chair Perales and I will speak last in the interest of time to provide an opportunity for equal participation. Please try to keep your comments concise. Friends, there's some sadness in our transit world today. We begin this meeting in solidarity with our partners in Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority. Of course, we are deeply saddened by this event and others like it. This one, a horrific event, occurred on Wednesday, May 26th. And I'd like to recognize Vice Chair Raul Perales to lead us in acknowledging this loss in our community.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I changed my my background to an image, and I'll shut that out for a moment there as I offer just some words, and then ask our board to take a moment of silence. As you all know, on Wednesday, May 26th, we had a mass shooting incident at one of our VTA rail yards here. And the images of the faces, the individuals that you see there are 9 VTA employees that lost their lives, that were taken from us. And it's been a tremendously difficult time for the VTA family. And I just want to say thank you to the chair here and really to all transit agencies around the Bay Area that stepped up immediately to offer their assistance to the VTA and the VTA family. It is still impacting, obviously, as you can imagine, the community here, VTA operations. And so we definitely appreciate the support from all of our surrounding community. And I thank you, Chair, for allowing me to lead in just a moment of silence, as we'll ask now this board in our agency to take a moment of silence in remembering these 9 individuals. Thank you, Chair. And I'll ask now if we can take a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raul. No one should go to work and not come back at the end of the day. What a tragedy. And thank you for sharing that with us. So that brings us to our business of the day. And the first item is a consent calendar. Rob, is there anything that needs to be changed in the consent calendar that you're proposing?
No, we present the consent calendar as is.
Okay. Does any member of the board have any item on the consent calendar you'd like to ask to be removed for discussion? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Spearing will move.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion by Director Spearing and a second by Director Rayburn. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Chair Saylor,
Aye.
Vice Chair Perales,
Aye.
Director Allen, Director Duffy, Director Frericks,
Aye.
Director Gilmore,
Aye.
Director Holmes, Director Howdeshelt,
Aye.
Director Howell, Director Lee,
Yes.
Director McPartland,
Aye.
Director Miller,
Aye.
Director Saltzman, Director Price,
Aye.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Spearing,
Yes.
Director Amara.
Yes.
Thank you. It passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone. Move now to item 5, which is our action and discussion items.
Point of
Item 1.
order.
Yes.
Did you skip over your director's report, chair's report?
Thank you. No, I didn't. I did present the report that I intended to,
Okay.
which essentially was to
Yes.
honor the loss in the
Thank you.
we did, and then to acknowledge that our next meeting will be in person, we think. So sorry if that wasn't clear, Robert.
That's just fine. And I want to also express my sympathy to Director Perales about the loss of his dear friend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we thank you very much for that. So our item 5-1 is fiscal year 2021 public transportation account funding. Mr. Paget.
Yes, this first item is a good one. We were fortunate to be asked by the state to submit ideas for potential one-time funding projects. The state does have some additional funds available through the PTA account, in part due to the support we've received from federal resources this year to keep our services running through the pandemic. And so we have submitted some projects that we believe will be funded. We're coming to you a little bit early on this. We haven't received final approval from the state, but we want to be able to act quickly if this is in fact approved. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my Deputy Managing Director, Leo Sanchez, who will walk us through these two projects.
Thanks, Rob. So I'm very excited to talk about the two projects in front of you. So the first one that I'm going to be covering is the Enterprise Asset Management System. So this asset management system essentially will be a fleet monitoring system. As you can see here, the tentative budget that we have planned is about a $3 million budget. We're still working through that. That number's not final yet. We are looking to having a state-owned in-house EAMS system that will be of use for both Caltrans and the JPA.
If I could jump in for 1 second. So we should have some slides on this that we do not see on the screen currently.
I don't have them.
Are we able to get the slides projected?
Yes, Jackie.
Jackie, are we able to get the slides projected?
The slides are managed by your department.
Okay, give us a second.
Okay.
Leo, why don't you keep going?
Yeah, I'll keep going, and then you guys can follow along.
The packet has all the materials, so we will show those slides in a second.
So just to go back to the conversation on the EAMS system, some of the benefits of the system are both to increase the efficiency of our existing state-owned fleet, improve the equipment availability, which will enable us to run our service, and then have a system that accurately tracks and reports work orders and in addition, tracks the warranty of equipment. So a lot of these things are things that we wish we had today, but unfortunately the reality is that we don't. And one of the things that this will give us is also more visibility, transparency on the clear status of our equipment, and be able to allow us to hold the contractor accountable. So that's the first project. The second project that we have is it's a in-car air purifier, and specifically the solution that we're looking to procure is the blue filter solution. And this is a combination of both mechanical filter and an electrostatic filter. One of the key benefits of this system is that it eliminates 92% of viruses and 83% of bacteria per air cycle. Each air cycle could happen anywhere between 1 minute to 7 minutes, depending on some of the specifications and settings that we have the system running at. Next slide, Amy. Okay, great. And so what we're trying to do is procure a system that we can install on board and will work, and it will be compatible with the HVAC system, not just for our equipment, but also for the JPAs, the other JPA San Joaquin and Losan. And the projected budget of this project is around $2.4 million. And like I've highlighted, there's some current benefits, not just for COVID, but also any other airborne diseases, including the seasonal flu, which one of the things that we hope to do with this system is to make passengers comfortable riding our trains and really drive our ridership up, especially as we see that there's other potential variants of the existing virus. So what I ask today is for you to approve the resolution in your package as it relates to both of these projects for PTA funding.
Thank you very much, Leo. We appreciate the report. Are there any questions before we turn to discussion? Any questions on this? Okay. Good. Is there any public comment on this item? I don't hear or see any. Jackie, anybody asking to comment on this? Okay, let's. We're ready for a motion then, colleagues.
I'll move approval.
Excellent.
Second by Howard.
Very good. So we have a motion by Director Rayburn and a second by Director Howdeshelt. Jackie.
I'm waiting one moment. So we have two directors trying to log on, Saltzman and
I'm here.
Sparing. Okay, great.
I just got back in too. Thank you.
All right, very good. So we have a motion on the floor by, I believe it's by Rayburn, and a second by Howdeshelt, and this is to approve item 5-1. Okay, let's call the roll.
Chief Saylor,
Yes?
Vice Chair Perales,
Yes.
Director Allen, Director Duffy, Director Frericks,
Aye.
Director Gilmore,
Aye.
Director Holmes, Director Howdeshelt,
Aye.
Director Howell, Director Lee,
Yes.
Director McPartland,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Aye.
Director Saltzman,
Yes.
Director Price,
Aye.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Sparing,
Yes.
Director Amara.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously.
Very good, thank you. That moves us to item 2, the right-of-way safety and security program. Mr. Padgett.
Thank you. As you know, we have been challenged with the management of the right-of-way, and in partnership with Union Pacific, we've been actively working over the past 2 years to keep the right-of-way safe and secure. Although we do believe that our existing program has been effective in reducing incidents, our fatality rate is still far too high. Today, I'm going to have my deputy, Leo Sanchez, walk you through a new program that we are going to do in partnership with Union Pacific to further reduce fatalities in the corridor. With that, I'll hand it over to Leo.
Thanks, Rob. And if we could put the slides back up. that loads, I'll just go ahead and get started. So the right-of-way safety improvement plan that we have today to discuss is going to take you through a few different items. First, we'll talk a little bit about the current trends and what we've seen along our route. We'll then highlight some of the critical areas along the corridor that we're looking to drive some improvements. We'll talk about some of our current safety improvement plans, and then talk about a supplement to the existing plan that will enable us to reduce the amount of incidents that we see along the route. So we can go to the next slide. All right, so here on this slide, all I want to drive your attention to is that this is data that's coming from the Union Pacific Railroad Network, which spans 22 states west of the Mississippi. And as you can see here, we have two of our crossings are actually in the top 30 across their network, and they're ranked 1 on Cutting Boulevard and 3 at High Street in Oakland. This data that we're talking about here is only specifically for safety incidents that occur at railroad crossings. But I just really want to highlight just how severe some of the incidents that we're seeing along our route, specifically here in the Alameda and Contra Costa counties. So next slide. So this slide in front of you is a heat map that was developed thanks to our Climate Corps fellow, Catherine Gosselin, with help from Marcus Cook on our marketing team. And what it's showing here is it's showing the different incidents, not just the grade crossings that we talked about on the previous slide, but also the trespasser strikes that occur anywhere on the route, not just at grade crossings, vehicle incidents. And this is data that's coming from not just Capital Quarter, but it's also showing San Joaquin's and the Amtrak long distance. So as you can see, the heat map really highlights 3 specific areas. You can see Richmond is really bright red, Oakland, and then down further south near Hayward. Some additional data points that we're continuing to track and we'll be looking at as we move forward are near misses and debris strikes that we also see regularly. Next slide. So this slide here is one that you are more familiar with. We generally present this on the Managing Director report. And this is the most severe of all the incidents. These are trespasser fatalities that are occurring along our corridor. You can see on here we have the last 3 years that are shown on the map. And one thing that I want to draw your attention to is that fiscal year 19 was our full service, and then a combination. The fiscal year 20, we reduced our service down to 55% of service, and you can see it was from March 20th through 2020 through March of this year, and then we most recently increased our service. However, what you can see is that the number of trespasser fatalities has not decreased, yet we are roughly running half the service. So it really reiterates how significant the problem is, and so we want to do more. Next slide. So as you are all familiar, we do have the SRA funding that allows us to continue to do some of the right-of-way cleanup that we continue to do along our route. We do look at the data that we're seeing and try to focus our attention on different areas along the corridor. That has definitely helped to prevent this issue from getting even worse than what we've seen. Part of the cleanup is not just the cleanup itself, but it's also to provide new fencing along the route and maintain the existing fencing. We also do other outreach activities like Operation Lifesaver, and then public outreach via some of the cities that we work with. Next slide. So what I have in front of you today is a supplement to the ongoing strategy. So we want to continue doing the cleanup, the outreach, the fencing, both maintenance and new fencing, but we also want to propose to have an additional enhancement to to the security and safety of the route by adding 2 special agents that would be dedicated to both improving and responding to incidents along the route. These would be employed by Union Pacific, and they would be able to provide safety and security services specifically dedicated along the right-of-way. We would be working with them directly to create initiatives and strategies to address some of these high-risk issues that we see on the right-of-way. We would have some regular reporting and data analysis similar to what you saw on your slides to really focus the attention of these agents and really continue to eliminate some of the issues that we see on the right-of-way. The budget authorization that we have in front of you is for $2.5 million. It's $500,000 a year for a 5-year period. The focus of the program is going to be to realize the improved safety along the right-of-way. Amtrak Police Department would continue to serve as our public-facing security presence at stations and on board the trains. So with that, I ask today that you approve the resolution in your package, and if anyone has any questions, I'm glad to take them.
Director Saylor, you are on mute.
Sorry about that. I see Mr. Rayburn and Ms. Salzman both have questions. I don't remember who went first, so Robert, will you
Thank you.
Proceed?
Yes. Thank you, Leo, for your thorough report and your ongoing efforts to counter this very disturbing trend. And thank you for the fencing. Neighbors love it in East Oakland, the cleanups. But what is really disturbing, I came upon a fatal crash at the high street. The train had pushed the vehicle half a mile and the train was stopped blocking Fruitvale, and that's why I happened upon this. What are the countermeasures that we can employ at High Street? High Street is not a major crossing. It's a little side road, whereas Fruitvale Avenue is the main crossing with big fare gates, lots of warnings. What countermeasures could we employ at High Street?
This is Rob Patchett. I'm gonna respond to that with a more general answer than the specific crossing, and I will talk about this in the next agenda item. One of the things that's quite encouraging is that in both the state governor's budget that may revise and the federal, there is a very notable increase in funding to grade crossings and grade crossing improvements that we have not had adequately funded in recent years. And our hope, and we intend to work closely with the communities up and down the corridor, our hope is not only High Street, but other high-risk locations that we can take advantage of these programs and make a big difference.
Thank you for your attention to this, and I hope that we can garner some of those funds for the top priority crossings.
Excellent point. Director Salzman and then Director Allen.
Thank you. This is, of course, a very important issue to address as we're talking about people's lives at stake here. And so I really appreciate all the work you've done so far. I'm a bit skeptical about what 2 people can do, given, the amount of track that there is and the amount of issues that we have. So I'm okay with going forward with this today, but I wanted to see if we can have regular updates. I don't know what's reasonable to you, if it's updates at each meeting, since we only meet every 2 months, if it's a little bit less frequent than that, but I do think we need some updates and need to show that we're making progress with these 2 folks, because I want to make sure they're set up for success and not taking on an impossible job for 2 people. So I don't know if you've thought at all about reporting back to the board on how this is going, but I'd feel a lot more comfortable approving this today if I knew we would get that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So we are including that as part of our contract with Union Pacific, is ensuring that we have clear expectations and measurable items that we can then have for really seeing the effectiveness of the program. So we are planning on meeting with them first at a high level monthly, and then with more data and breaking down the data of what we're looking at quarterly. So I'm more than happy to provide updates on a quarterly basis in the board meetings.
Great, thank you so much.
Good, thank you. Deborah Allen.
Thank you. I think I share the comments of my colleagues on the BART board. The safety of people really must be our priority, and I would agree with Director Saltzman in the request to bring this issue back and talk more about it. But for, you know, and I also agree that two people, not sure whether that can really solve the problem. Maybe it helps a little, but you know, I would love to see, and maybe we don't have this, maybe we do. If we don't, we need to study it. What are really the long-term solutions and goals for providing a much better scenario than what we're seeing here? Thank you.
Good points. I don't see any other, Mr. Spearing, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, Don, I don't see where I can raise my hand on my screen. So, you know, what conclusions do we draw? The number of trains are down and the incidents are up. What conclusion do you draw there?
So I think what we're seeing is that there is a growing number of both encampments and activity along the right-of-way. We are trying to do more outreach, continue our focus on the cleanups, specifically areas where we see the issues. But I think what we see is that, you know, unfortunately, doing the cleanup in itself, doing the fence repair in itself, you know, it's a short solution that's often, you know, we're having to go back and address again. So what we're hoping to be able to do with the officers is hopefully have more of a regular presence that can discourage people from being on the right-of-way, doing outreach to some of the first responders, and hopefully be able to mitigate some of the issues. Because you're right now we're at a growing trend. We're, you know, roughly just looking at the service that we're operating at and the numbers that we're seeing, we're going up, you know, 2 times of our normal trend just by looking at the frequency of trains that we're running.
And I would add too that there is a lot of work going on behind the scenes in a very positive way with communities up and down the corridor, and with Amtrak police as well, and Union Pacific police. And I would say that level of cooperation is at a totally different level than it has been in the past. And so you're right, you know, two special agents is not going to solve our problem. We're going to have to partner with communities up and down the corridor. And then in places where we can have a more secure corridor, we're going to do that and look for funding opportunities to do that, so that we can reduce the number of places where we have the corridor wide open, where we have all sorts of incidents. The more we can narrow that, the more we can focus our energy on those areas and try to keep it secure.
Yeah, you know, I hope staff isn't just dismissing suicides. You know, suicides are up. And, you know, if you're running fewer trains and you have the same number of fatalities, that, you know, people that are deciding to commit suicide, they're selecting our train. And if you're only running 1 train a day, they'll select that train. You know, I hope that we contact the counties that we serve and make them aware of this problem. You know, because I know in our county, we're dealing with people that have tendency for suicide. You know, our sheriff is looking for it. And I just don't want to dismiss that piece of it, which I think you really need to consider. It isn't just these encampments. All these people in encampments aren't just jumping out on the tracks, but you know, we're seeing a lot of these mentally ill and people that are committing suicide are using the trains. And so, you know, I would like staff to at least consider that and look at maybe doing some outreach to each of the counties we serve.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I'll add is that we do currently do outreach via Operation Lifesaver. And I think one of the things that we'll have to continue to do and do more of with the 2 additional resources is make sure that we not only do outreach via Operation Lifesaver, but also to the counties that we serve. So I definitely take the point that you're making.
Yeah, and you're right. The suicide prevention is something that's in the mix on this, and there's not one single issue out there that's driving this. It's really a bunch of stuff, and it's also cut-throughs. Unfortunately, we have people cut through in places that are not crossings with earbuds on, and they're just a range of incidents, and so this is why it's such a challenging issue for us. And so you're right, it's not all encampments, and we don't want to give that impression. And suicide is absolutely part of it.
And don't see other questions or comments. My own observation here is that these comments that have come from the four directors so far, I think are really insightful. This is it's a complex issue. This is only a piece of it. The action before us today just adds a very defined, limited resource. I think it would be helpful and interesting from my perspective if we could perhaps focus on one or two of the high priority sites that were identified in the slideshow and hear a presentation on what the whole package is, and I think the whole package includes interaction with the local community, with the county and the city involved, with homeless outreach, with hardening our own infrastructure, and deploying these safety officers that we're talking about today. So I think it might be helpful for us to. Sometimes you think of the whole corridor. We can't get everywhere all the time, but if we focused on the handful of really high priority sites and really drill down a little bit, I think it would be helpful, and it might be really impactful.
Yeah, we would be happy to come back and do a comprehensive presentation on a section of our corridor to give a good sense as to our overall strategy. We'd be happy to do that.
That'd be very good. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this topic before we?
There is not.
There is not. All right. Is there a motion to go forward?
Excellent comments, Director Saylor, and I wish to move it.
Second.
All right. Very good. We have motion by Rayburn, second by Saltzman. Jackie, would you please call the roll?
Chair Saylor.
Aye.
Vice Chair Perales.
Yes.
Director Allen.
Yes.
Director Duffy. Director Frericks.
Aye.
Director Gilmore.
Aye.
Director Holmes. Director Howdeshelt.
Aye.
Director Howell. Director Lee.
Yes.
Director McPartland. I guess he's.
That's an aye.
Okay. Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Saltzman.
Yes.
Director Price.
Aye.
Director Rayburn.
Yay.
Director Spearing.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously.
Excellent. It brings us to item 5-3, legislation and funding for state and federal. Mr. Paget.
Thank you very much. And just to clarify, we do not have an action item on this today. This will be an information item.
Right.
So, really a very lot of good news on the legislative front. And I'll first just mention the state happenings, and then I'll talk about some of the federal work that's underway. On the state side, as you're all aware, Governor Newsom proposed an $11 billion addition in the May revise for transportation. And I do want to highlight a few things in that are important to this board and our service. One is $500 million proposed for grade separations. Another $407 million in zero emission infrastructure for fleet on the rail side, which is great. We know we're committed to that here at Capital Corridor. And then $1 billion for transit and rail projects to connect state and local communities. So lots of good news on the state front. And I would say that as the legislature and governor negotiate the final details on that, the really positive thing about this proposal is, as I talk about the federal legislation underway, it will position California and Capital Corridor to be able to provide matching funds and leverage our state dollars with federal resources. So the timing is quite good here, and we think a lot of opportunity will come in the future months. On the federal side, first I want to mention that there is still discussion on a larger infrastructure bill. You've heard a lot about that from President Biden. It's unclear where that's going at this point. I think negotiations have stalled, but we will see where that lands. At the same time, we have seen a whole lot of movement on the reauthorization front. And if you could pull up the slides again, Jackie. And we're on slide 17. And actually, go ahead and go. Well, I'll mention actually real quick, the House bill is the Invest Act, which has been out for a few weeks. And then last week, the Surface Transportation Investment Act came out on the Senate side. If you can go to the next slide, please. And I would say in general terms, the House bill creates new discretionary rail programs, while the Senate bill tends to make changes to existing programs. The Senate bill also relies more on states to plan for and execute projects, while the House bill relies more on Amtrak. But both of these bills include some really important changes to the costing approach. So we pay for our services through an allocation of costs that is done across all the states to provide services. There's a real need for reform in that. And fortunately, the language that we worked with Congress to develop is in both bills, and that would require some reform to that, which we think would be really positive going forward. But overall, both of these bills propose a really significant increase in authorization for rail. By comparison, we were at $2.5 billion previously, and between these two bills, we're talking $6.7 billion to $17.5 billion annually as proposed. Now, of course, you have to get appropriations in those bills later, but certainly the signal is there that intercity rail will be an important part of our federal transportation bill, and this has been slowly getting stronger and stronger over the last couple cycles, and this certainly is a really good sign as we move forward. On this table here, you will see the left column shows what was authorized in FY19 under the FAST Act. The next column is the Invest, which is the House bill with both the annual and then the 5-year funding levels. And then the last two columns show the comparison in the Senate bill. And you have a copy of these slides. It does give you a good sense as to some of the differences across the programs. And I'll just highlight a few and then take questions. The Chrissy program has been around. As you know, we've tried to get funding through that program. It's broadly eligible for freights and passenger railroads. Both of these bills propose quite a significant increase in authorization. Notably, the House bill also expands eligibility to commuter railroads across the country, which is a pretty big change. The Prime program and the BEST program are new programs within the House. And both of those programs are great for passenger rail. The one thing about the BEST program is that it really isn't available for California under the current text. It limits eligibility to projects that are part of a multi-state environmental process. California is a big state geographically. That's a little bit of an issue for us, so we're working on trying to make some minor changes to make sure that California would be eligible should that program go forward. And then the Amtrak funding here, you can see it's much more robust in the House bill. And I should note that that what that means is that Amtrak would essentially have a lot more authority and decision-making about where projects are executed. So in our opinion, the Senate bill is stronger for an organization like ours that delivers projects. And we are generally more supportive of that approach. In the Senate bill, you'll also see that the federal state partnership program shows a big increase in authorization. That program previously was fairly narrow in focus, and what they've done in the Senate bill is they broaden eligibility, and that would be a great place for us to go for a lot of our projects. As I was talking through this with the members of our ad hoc committee, which met last Friday, one of the questions came up of what does this mean for Capital Corridor? These numbers are so big, it's hard to wrap our heads around what it would mean. And my response to that is that it means that we can move quickly to implement many of the things that are in our vision plan. We have a real vision for how we want to improve our service. We have done it almost entirely with state dollars at this point. And all of these programs open the door for us to move very quickly and do some really big projects. And you're going to hear about a big project maybe with a bridge coming up here. That kind of stuff can really be in the mix as we move forward with the level of authorization that we're seeing in these proposals. I'll also note, and you can see here at the bottom of this chart, the safety. Again, we heard the state side, there's an increase in funding for grade separations. On the federal side, that's also the case. State of California and the federal government both recognize that we have some issues on the rail side we need to address, and this is funding that's going to really help us take a more concerted effort. Lastly, before I open up for questions, I do want to mention that we quickly got together the ad hoc committee as these two bills came out, and that just a reminder that membership includes Chair Saylor, Directors Rayburn, Saltzman, Freerick. And at the conclusion of that meeting, we agreed to do the following. One is send a letter of congratulations and support to the Senate committee that developed the bill, and the same on the House side. We also will continue to work on the House side with the state of California and the other JPAs and the other states to expand eligibility in the BEST program to make sure that that is changed slightly to say that if you're a part of a state or multi-state plan, you can be eligible, and that makes sure that single state plan like California could be eligible. And then lastly, and this shouldn't be last because it should be at the top. We were fortunate to see in the bill that Representative Khanna's community grant for our Agnew siding project is in that House bill, and that's just great to see. It is really a project that benefits both ACE and Capital Corridor, and therefore meets the criteria as a transit project. And we were excited to see that support in the bill, and we will definitely draft a letter and send our appreciation for his support on that. With that, I will pause and take any questions.
Thank you very much. And you're ahead of yourself. That letter's already been sent. Raul and I signed it yesterday along with some others.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Good work.
And I should say we'll send the letters out to everybody just in a single email shortly.
Excellent. Any questions on this exciting news? I don't see any questions. Thank you. Very, very clear report. And this is a really interesting opportune time for us to engage and to see how we can maximize benefit to our service. Thank you, Rob. Next item is the California State Rail Plan update. Another information item.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to, as Jackie's pulling the slides up again, I would like to introduce Shannon Simons, our guest speaker today with Caltrans, and she has been right in the middle of the update of the state rail plan, and we're excited to be a partner in this, and she will give us a brief update and take questions from all of you.
Great.
Good morning. Like Rob said, my name is Shannon Simons. I'm the regional coordinator for the Bay Area and the Central Coast out of.
And Shannon, your volume is a little low.
Hang on, let me see if I am on the wrong microphone. Can you hear me at all better now?
Pretty low.
Okay. Hang on a second. I thought I had troubleshooted this before.
And Shannon, check your input mic levels. Maybe that is too low, perhaps.
Sorry. I'm going to switch to my phone audio real quick. Apologies, everybody. Okay, can you hear me better now?
That's better.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Hello again. My name is Shannon Simons. I'm the Regional Rail and Transit Coordinator for the Bay Area and the Central Coast out of the Caltrans Division of Rail and Mass Transit. And so I'm going to give you a real quick high-level overview of the update to the California State Rail Plan today. Next slide. So the development of this rail plan responds to, various federal and state regulations, but also importantly to many of the executive orders and climate action plan CAPTI that have come out of the governor's office recently. And at a very high level, these are kind of the driving goals for the rail plan. So we want to make sure that we're setting a vision for zero emission statewide transportation systems. So not just mode shifting people away from cars and onto rail and transit, but making sure that those buses and trains are also providing zero emission transportation. Defining and delivering equity. So looking at past decisions that have divided communities and amplified racial inequalities, and then working towards investments in rail and transit that will enhance the access and improve service and all-day service to folks who have been displaced to auto-dependent communities. And then lastly, tackling the climate crisis. So CALSTA and Caltrans are using this document as one of the policy tools to support funding decisions and really move us towards mitigating and adapting to climate change. Next slide. So this is a map from the 2018 rail plan showing the 2040 vision for passenger rail in California. But these three principles still guide the development of the 2022 state rail plan. So first and foremost, we are developing a network that is an integrated statewide network. So, integrating high-speed rail, as well as intercity and regional services, and then filling in gaps to more rural parts of the states or in low frequency times of the day with integrated express bus service. And the second principle is that these all have to operate on coordinated schedules. So we're designing this entire system to have this regular pulse service where services are predictable and clock-based, coming in and out of key transfer hubs on a regular pulse service, and that these hubs really operate as the key connection for services in the state. Importantly, this is not designing or planning for all of the local transit, but it's making public transit connections easier by knowing when these kind of core statewide services are pulsing in and out of key hubs across the state. And then lastly and importantly, the whole plan is designed to be customer focused. So not just on the actual service, but this includes seamless first and last mile access via, walking, biking, and other transit and micro mobility options. This includes our integrated ticketing program, which Capital Corridor is very heavily involved in the Cal ITP program. And then really making sure that all of the services we're designing are both auto and air competitive in terms of travel time, as well as reliability and cost. Next slide. This is my favorite slide. So what this graphic shows is roughly the counties in California, north to south. Oh, you can go back one. Thank you. The left side of both of these maps in the teal is the 2010 base year that we used in the last rail plan, showing existing travel times on rail between these counties. On the right side of the no build scenario, this is kind of business as usual, population growth, implementing improvements that are in the pipeline. And you can see that some new market connections are made and some are intensified, but that it's relatively modest. On the right side, this is what you get when you actually deliver the 2040 vision with high-speed rail integration and all of these key transfer hubs. So you can see that there's just significant increase in serving this large market potential by networking and integrating all of the services. Next slide. Mm-hmm. So in order to achieve that, we are updating the rail plan again, operating, kind of moving forward on the past integration efforts we did last time. And so this plan will enhance rail service in the public interest and serve as the basis for all of that federal and state rail investment that Rob was just explaining to you all. So the first part is what we've really been focused on over the past few months and that Capital Corridor staff has been involved in, and that's in revising the statewide vision. So incorporating outputs from various network integration studies and activities and other local and regional studies, as well as our own efforts over the past couple of years. All of this is to then advise priorities for state investment and then to devise implementation strategies to actually move from planning towards getting these services up and running. Next slide. And so this is just one slide trying to explain very quickly what we've done over the past few months to update the statewide network. So the first thing we did was a technical review of the last 2018 rail plan, as well as all of the subsequent implementation and network integration studies that our partners and we have done. Then we created an initial high-level statewide network concept similar to that schematic that you see under the dots on the right side there. From that, we identified these 8 focus areas for further technical analysis and refinement. Basically, these were where we felt we hadn't done enough work over the past couple of years, or things had significantly changed since the last rail plan, and we needed to bring all the stakeholders together to really refine those areas. And so the Bay Crossings and Sacramento Valley regions were definitely, Capital Quarter staff was heavily involved in the updates to those focus areas. From that, we refined the statewide network concept with all the input from the stakeholders. And then once we had agreed upon a 2050 final vision for each of these regions, then we did we derived back the midterm and the near-term service planning horizon time years. So we have near-term, midterm, and long-term planning, which will guide how we develop the capital costs and then continue on with the rest of the benefits analysis for the state rail plans. Next slide. So this is the high-level project schedule. So we are in June 2021. So we are completing our technical analysis and our benefits analysis now. We are in the process of developing our administrative draft. And then we are preparing for continued outreach, public outreach, and stakeholder outreach in advance of the public draft release in fall of this year. And then there'll be a ton more focus on hopefully maybe even some in-person outreach by the fall, where you all will have a chance to provide much more detailed comments on the entire plan from there. And so with that, I will pass it back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. Are there questions, colleagues?
Yeah, Don, Jim Sperring.
Yes.
Hey, Shannon, in the Bay Area, we use the Clipper card. We're trying to make our whole system seamless, and we're looking into wayfinding and fare integration. Is there any discussion about these cards that are used like in the Bay Area, Sacramento, integrating that into the system?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the big features of the rail plan and of the work that we with Capital Corridor are doing is the California Integrated Travel Project, which is really looking at how to make planning a trip, paying for a trip, and accessing your benefits for this trip much more seamless and easy for the customer. And so there are some tricky things in integrating that with some of these tap-to-pay systems that already exist. We call it closed loop. So like Clipper or the SacRT Connect card mean that you can really only operate in those systems with money loaded to those cards. But we're working on systems that will make this an open loop payment system. So if you have that little, tap-to-pay on your credit card that you can use at the grocery store or on vending machines or from your mobile wallet, we're working to get that implemented on our trains and buses across the state so that you don't necessarily need the region-specific card and you don't need to convert your money into transit money. We'll just let you tap to pay with your normal card across the state. And so that is not to say there aren't challenges, certainly on the technology and policy side, integrating the closed and open loop systems, but our program manager has been working really closely with the Clipper executive team and with MTC on that. And I know that Capital Corridor is moving to be the first railroad passenger rail agency in the world, at least in the country, to put these tap to pay validators on the system. So we're in the process of rolling this out. MST in Dunn and Salinas is the first agency to actually have the tap to pay validators on their buses. So we're starting to collect that real world data through these pilot projects on like what works, what doesn't, what do we need to fix on some of the elements of this program. So yes, there's some more work to do, but
Thank you.
Director Saltzman.
Thank you. As you develop this plan, what thought are you giving to how to address sort of both sides of sprawl? One is that our state has a lot of sprawl development, and a lot of those folks have no good transportation opportunities, besides a car. So you obviously want to serve those existing communities, but are you giving thought about how to develop this plan in a way so it doesn't induce even more sprawl? And we actually, instead of helping the climate, we induce more climate change and more people driving and clogging the roads?
Yeah, that is a great question that I will try to answer. I mean, I think to the second part, definitely. I think an important thing that I didn't necessarily say is that we are largely planning this on existing rights of way. So we have a lot of underutilized capacity in the state just on the railroad rights of way that we already own and operate passenger rail service on. And so I think importantly, we are not necessarily planning new extensions. In a lot of cases, we're not even planning for new double or triple tracking, just targeted sidings or improvements to stations and things like that. So I think that's a big benefit of making these type of investments on, say, like a rail and transit system, is we actually don't need to expand into much more land, and we can be more thoughtful with our partners on how to develop the station areas to try and co-locate more jobs and mixed use development in and around transit stations. On the other side, to your first question, I think that's a little bit trickier. That's kind of the golden ticket question. I think one of the things we're doing, kind of coupled with the state rail plan, is an intercity bus study. And I think this gives us a lot of opportunity to reach some of those more rural markets or suburban markets or exurban markets like you're saying, don't really have viable transportation options. And so planning it around this same kind of pulse of core systems, so that there's kind of these like trunk line pulse bus systems that connect with the trunk line rail systems that make it easier for local transit to feed into them. Because, okay, every 30 minutes or every 60 minutes on the 10, there will be a bus or a train, and we can organize our services around that. There's still a lot of work to do, but I think that we are encouraged by all of these investments and trying to get the bus services out to connect back into the rail system and provide more choices.
That's great to hear about the focus on buses, because I think we actually underutilize buses in this state, and other places are doing it a lot better. And it can work quite well. And if you do it right, it can be just as reliable as a train, especially if they have their own lanes or have, these parts of the route be their own lanes where it's needed. So that's great to hear. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks, Rebecca. Director Rayburn, you're on mute.
Thank you, Shannon. What a breath of fresh air. I'm very interested in all the things you suggested. The buses are important to this passenger as well. And I look forward to going up to Lake Tahoe on the new El Dorado County partnership that we're forming. The tap to pay sounds incredibly interesting. And I'm wondering, how can we change our policy so that we don't penalize riders who don't buy a ticket in the station and they board the train? And if we have tap to pay, it should go very quickly and not be a burden for conductors.
Yeah, this is Rob. I think I'd like to address that one. So what I'd like to do is come back and give you a full presentation on what we are thinking there. But you're spot on. I mean, the whole idea of this is to make it easy. We're wrapped into the current Amtrak ticketing system now, which is just not nimble enough for our customers. And so we are working with Cal ITP. As you know, we're a sponsor of that project. And as a pilot in that, we hope to really lead the way on it. But we're not quite ready to come with all the details, but either at our next meeting or the one after that, we will come with a complete presentation on that topic.
Very exciting. Thank you.
Okay, very good. I don't see any other comments or questions, but Shannon, thank you very much for sharing this with us this morning and keep us informed. We'll move to item 5, the Karkinis Strait high-level crossing feasibility study.
Next, and I do want to mention on the buses, we are, as you know, very engaged in that topic, and we will continue to do that. So look, stay tuned for more on that. So next, I'd like to hand it over to our planning director, Jim Allison. I'm excited to introduce him today, and he is going to talk about kind of why this is on the agenda, and in light of all of our positive news on the legislative front. We want to look ahead and look for big stuff. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jim.
Great. Thank you very much. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Pleasure to present to you on this project. This is kind of the sandwich, middle of the sandwich between the State Rail Plan and Link 21. So I wanted to give you an example of a very significant project that we see is needed. And if we can advance to the next slide. Those of you who have ridden the train frequently have probably been stopped at the bridge, the Benicia Martinez Bridge. It lifts for marine traffic, which varies throughout the day, throughout the year with economic conditions, but does have the priority over rail traffic. There's a Herculean effort done between the bridge tender, Union Pacific, the Coast Guard, and the operators of these ships in the bay to make this as small an impact as possible, but sometimes you cannot get away from that. They do try to avoid the scheduled trains. As we looked into the future projects that the Capital Corridor might deliver to increase frequency, increase reliability, increase speeds, it became very quickly apparent that this delicate balance that we have today of working with all the parties involved to try to minimize the effect of these lifts is going to disappear. Effectively, if you add, think about adding half-hourly passenger rail service between Sacramento and the Bay Area in the peak hour or really any time, and you couple that with a possibility to increase freight, your chances of hitting an opening, and these openings roughly last 20 minutes at a minimum, they can be a lot longer because of queued up shipping traffic. The chances of having a bridge lift and disrupt your schedule increase immensely. It's not just doubling, it will be more than that. So here's on this slide here, you'll see the bridge. It's kind of hidden in between the two highway bridges. It is certainly at a lower level, and the lifting mechanism is down. The lifting area of the bridge is a little bit further down on the towards that lower arrow of the bridge. That's the actual piece that lifts. And then you have a location map to see where it is in case you haven't experienced this yourself. Next slide, please. So what we did working with some of our consultants, DB has a model that can look at various projects and see how effective they are for increasing things like frequency. And we had them look at a number of projects that could be good for adding frequency and or speed and also reliability between Sacramento and Benicia. So these are just example projects. We have the Benicia Lead project, which would add capacity to get freights off the main line. And that in itself, by their analysis, could potentially allow us to add one more train per hour to the route if we negotiated successfully with UP. We could also increase, with the modifications at Davis, the speed at which freight trains can move through the Davis improvements that we've talked about before with the board. And as well, there's much bigger projects that could add essentially triple track service, and projects 3 and 4 listed here could really start to route freight away from the passenger trains. They are essentially the same project, same effect, but they're different options. So, but even as we look at these improvements, every one of them, all the millions we might spend on them could be for naught unless we replace this bridge that could lift. So if you can go to the next slide. So because of being aware of this, this is a huge project to kick off. This is the kind of stuff that Rob talked about, needing big federal funding and a big program to work through, and we'll need time to work through this. But we figured there's no time like the present to be ready to invest in these generational projects. This bridge was built many generations ago. It was finished in 1930. So it's time. So to that end, we're going to look at conducting a high-level engineering feasibility study. We have right now $1 million secured from TIRSIP awards from the state, from some of the program that Shannon had identified, and we've worked closely with the Division of Rail and Mass Transit to identify that these funds can be used. So we're going to use these funds initially to kick off a planned organization of study to look at a new crossing. And then there is a subsequent potential round of PTA funds, and you heard that earlier action item for the enterprise asset management and the purifiers. There's another round of funding that is very strong potential to go towards this project, to supplement this project and really do all the hard level analysis, the geotechnical analysis, build a PSR, project study report, and get a future project ready to go for a crossing in this territory. Where we're looking at a crossing isn't just the bridge. In fact, that's the easiest part of it. It is the approach to the high point of the bridge. We roughly understand that a bridge will probably need to be about 159 feet of clearance to sea level or to water level. And that makes the decking roughly 171 feet up. But it is the approaches to get up to that level which will be the challenge. The freight approach, they would ideally love it to be no greater than the 0.5% grade. And of course, that's going to send the approach construction miles back just to get up to 171 feet. What's more likely, working with Union Pacific and with the state on this in the future, is to look at a grade that's somewhere around 2%, which is, with additional locomotive power, can be managed. We will also look at doing a passenger rail only bridge, which could approach the 4 to 5% range. This would, of course, not solve the freight problem with partners such as UP. So all of these will be on the table. If and when we get additional funding, the PTA funding, we will come back to the board to get, like we did with the prior item, to get approval to move ahead. But the study that we will start on will essentially look at crossings in the Vallejo area, potentially through the middle area, although it's very difficult to imagine connecting to existing rail facilities, but we'll certainly also look at connections that are around the Martinez area, because of course we have the rail infrastructure on the land at that point. So this is just an informational item. It's just to brief you on the importance of this crossing and what we're doing in the months and years ahead to work through this. And I can take some questions, but this is also a natural blending into the next item, which is the Link 21 presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Are there questions before we move to the next item? Deborah Allen, you have a question?
Yes, thank you for this presentation. I know that both myself and BART Director Liz Ames, we are thrilled to see this conversation. This bridge, actually half of it goes into my BART district, and we both believe that this is a critical point for expanding service in a whole lot of areas, as you've mentioned. So I just, on behalf of Director Ames, who could not actually attend the meeting today, she just wanted me to also express that, she's very pleased with the feasibility study and hopes that some feasible alternatives would be studied and included as a part of the Link 21 efforts that are going on. So we hope to see this conversation, spread into some of these other areas. Thanks.
Very good point. Any other comments or questions? Very good. Jim, thank you. I think we're ready for item 6, the Link 21.
All right, yeah, good timing on the Link 21 question. So, we are moving into a new phase on this project, and we will hear a lot more about it in the coming weeks. And so we want to give you an update on where we are on that. And with that, I will hand it over to Camille Tsao. Camille is our lead from Capital Corridor on this project and a key part of the project team. So with that, I will turn it over to Camille.
Thanks, Rob. Good morning, directors.
Good morning.
I'm Camille Tsao, program lead for Link 21 for the Capital Corridor. And I'm here to give you a little update on what we've been up to, but more importantly, what we're going to be doing in the next 3 to 6 months. Next slide, please. So last time we provided an update to this board was in February. We were kicking off our website. We had a great presentation by the Bay Area Council Economic Institute releasing their new report on the importance of Link 21 to the mega region. And since then, we've been adding more features to our website. We have a quiz up there now. It's kind of a trivia on travel patterns in the mega region, just to kind of help people test their knowledge about, how we move about in the mega region and where the jobs are, et cetera, where people are trying to go. And we've also increased our presence on social media. So people are definitely learning more about the program. Next, please. So just to remind you of the timeline, we are in phase 0. So we're still in the very initial stages. And we are in the next 6 to 9 months, basically working towards getting ready to be able to move to phase 1 next year. And in order to do that, we need to work with our stakeholders and do a lot of outreach and work on developing some program concepts so we have an idea of what is going to be in the program. So next slide. So in about a year's time, or a little under a year's time, we'll be coming back to you as well as the BART board for what we call a stage gate review. And it's really a decision point. So we're going to be presenting some program concepts, and we're essentially going to be asking you to give us permission to continue to advance and study further the program concepts that we have developed that we see are the most feasible in terms of meeting the goals and objectives of the program. And then also, through our initial studies of the market, of some very preliminary engineering and so forth. And of course, all of this it relies on input from our stakeholders. So next slide, please. So in the next few months, we're launching our first round of public workshops. These are virtual, and really it is an introduction to the program, but also to kind of hear from people, if we had a better connected rail network in the Northern California mega region, what are the kind of trips that they would like to take? Where would they like to go? What do they think we need to be addressing in terms of, service aspirations? So if you haven't heard already, we've been advertising through social media the dates that we've scheduled, and you should have received an email update. We're starting to do a monthly emailed update to our board and to our program development team members, our major stakeholders. We're also doing some co-creation workshops, which I'll touch on in a minute. We've got some new consultants coming on board later this year to help us with additional technical work and analysis. We'll be completing a market analysis that we started earlier this year, just to kind of help us understand the reach of rail potential in the 21 county mega region. We'll be initiating travel demand and ridership projections later this year, furthering the concepts and alternatives development, advancing a value capture strategy, and continuing to look at other funding opportunities and opportunities for joint funding advocacy. Next, please. So this is a snapshot of where we've planned some of our workshops. We recently, working with Placer County and Sacramento and Yolo counties, decided to hold a joint workshop. It's virtual, joint workshop, which will most likely be July 15th. We're also working with VTA staff to determine the best time to have a workshop in their county. Obviously, VTA has had other matters to deal with in recent weeks. So, we're going to take our time and work with them, continue to work with them. And also, in San Francisco, Contra Costa and Alameda counties, we have workshops scheduled, but really people can go to any of these workshops because they're virtual. It's just that for the specific geographies, we try to tailor the information a little bit to pertain to those counties that we're hosting the workshop in. And we've got some great participation from our partner agencies to help us co-host. Chair Saylor has graciously accepted our request to make opening remarks at the Sacramento YOLO Placer workshop. And so we welcome, and I believe Director Saltzman is also presenting at the Oakland Alameda one too. So thank you all for being willing to participate and show your enthusiasm and support for the program. And so this is just the first round. Again, really just trying to inform people, getting some feedback on market trends. And then we'll be coming back in the fall for more. We'll be sharing some program concepts and findings on the market analysis. So it will definitely continue. Next, please. So just a little bit more on our equity outreach. So this effort is specifically focused on populations that might not normally be engaged in the planning of large infrastructure projects, or perhaps in the past, these are communities that were harmed by large infrastructure projects. So we're really trying to make sure that we engage them in a meaningful way and engage them early in the program. And so we've had 23 events over 8 weeks with nearly 350 participants. And this is all around the mega region. We worked with a variety of community-based organizations to help us identify folks to participate in these focus groups. And we're proud to say we were able to provide compensation to the community-based organizations as well as to the focus group participants. And similar to our public virtual workshops, we plan to have several rounds of these co-creation workshops with these focus groups. So we're very proud of this effort, and it's going quite well. Next. And this is just an overview. We're doing a market analysis that is quite unusual and atypical because it is for such a large region, 21 county mega region. So really, we're using it to tell us possible origins and destinations that have high rail potential. So it's just a glimpse into the possibility. It's not a ridership forecast. It just shows which city pairs could potentially generate high demand for rail service. And so we're going to be using this market analysis to inform our program development, and we're going to be doing some sensitivity testing in the next several months to just better understand what things in our program could or maybe could not increase ridership potential. So that's just an overview of some of the work that we're doing in the next few months. And of course, I'll be coming back to you to give you another update in the near future. So thanks.
Very, very ambitious outreach effort that's underway. And I look forward to participating and to helping to link to many aspects of the community that we might not otherwise get to. So very exciting. Any questions or comments? Oh, Rob, this is a part of item 6, which is the overall CCJPA capital program. I believe you have any other comments on that item?
Yeah, I will take, as you know, we spotlight a project at every meeting, and then I also take questions. If there are any questions on any of the other capital projects underway, I'll be happy to take those at this time as well.
Any questions or comments on any of the other listed projects?
I have a real quick question. John McPartland, on slide 35, we're talking about public engagements throughout the mega region. Do we have a published list of?
You shifted into mute, John.
At the very end.
Do we have a list of on slide 35 where we're going to have public outreach engagements throughout the mega region? They're going to be on what are the dates and times associated with those?
We will send those out.
Okay, thank you.
I think I saw an email maybe yesterday that had that information in it. So if we just get it out again for folks.
All right, good. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, very good. I don't hear any other questions or comments on the on item 6. That brings us to item 5.7, Managing Director's Report.
And if Jackie, if you could pull the slides up again and start with slide 38, please. And I'll just give you a brief update on performance. I do want to touch on our schedule increase last week, our new locomotives, although I think we heard a little bit about that already today, and then a little bit on customer service. Next slide, please. So you can see we're heading steadily upward on our ridership. I wish I could have added one more week to this. So we added service last week, and our ridership went up 20% last week. We are solidly above 25% of typical ridership, and it's going in the right direction. And just remember that a lot of the big drivers of our service, including universities and some of the large employers and conferences and the legislative activity in Sacramento is still remote. And so what we're tending to see is a lot more ridership on weekends. In fact, on the weekends, we're up to about 50% of normal. And during the week, we are little less than that, but certainly growing every day. And it is a day-over-day increase. And so we turned the cafe service back on, and our service went up, and our riders responded. So we're feeling pretty good here about that. Next slide. And this is our summary of our performance. We always show you this one. Our ridership, obviously is way down this year over last. And, I think we're turning the corner here. I do, though, want to point out the on-time performance. We have really seen an improvement with the schedule change that we did at the end of March. And we're solidly at 90% now. You can see we're even a little bit above 90. We've had a few incidents this past week, which were beyond our control, which have hit us hard. But in terms of the kind of built-in conflicts that we're having, very much improved. And I think our customers are going to feel the difference when they come back. Next slide. And just to mention that we have done a lot of activity here on social media and even reaching out to media outlets to let people know we're back. One of the challenges is that and I know we all feel this ourselves, is that there's some skepticism when you see something online. Are they really open? Are they not open? And so we wanted to get the word out there. So if you can go to the next slide. We got some good coverage in Sacramento. So I did one of the morning shows in Sacramento on our first day, and we had a ukulele band out there and sent that out on social media. The other media outlets that didn't do the interview grabbed my comments and had them as quotes, and then did other live segments up in Sacramento, and that's a big market for us. and we got a lot of coverage there. So kudos to my team for, obviously that doesn't just happen. There was a lot of work done behind the scenes to get the attention of the media outlets in Sacramento, and a lot of good positive stuff, which is good for all of us as well. And then we also had some staff, and they're doing this now, going on the train in the morning. We've been giving away free coffee and danishes, and just a way to interact with our customers. I talked to a person, earlier this week on the platform who was back for the first time. He said he'd been in Indiana for the year and was going back to work for the first time. So customers are coming back slowly, and we want to be there for them so that they don't go crazy and jump in their car and try to do it in their car. Next slide. And we are just starting to push out. I think today they're going to start pushing this out. We want people to take pictures and send those back. And all this is just partly for us too. We want to feel good about where we're headed. So I encourage you to do this yourselves, as we have a hashtag here, CC back on board, and we want our customers to share their own experiences. Next slide. And as I mentioned, we've got for 2 weeks free coffee. So if you're riding the train this week, go get your coffee. We've got lots of interest in this, and our cafe attendants are super excited to be back. And we're thrilled to have them and appreciate that so many return to service. Next slide. And then do want to say the Charger locomotives are in service. So we decommissioned the 2 F-59s. This was funded through air quality funds, and so that's part of the deal. Is you bring the newer, cleaner Chargers in, and you get rid of the old stuff. And we did do that. It's just one of many steps, and I think you're going to see a lot more of this coming here in the coming years. Next slide. And then I've got 2 more slides here about just kind of our engagement with customers. So one of the kind of I wanted to show this to you today. So you can see the drop in call volume that we saw at our call center that came with the drop in service. And what we're seeing now is our call volume is ahead of our ridership. And we're hopeful that that means that there's a lot of interest and that people are exploring. We also do think there's some of this confirming that things are actually in business. And on the right, you can see the mix of what kinds of things that people are reaching out to us to find out about. We have a lot of automated information now, and we can watch where they're checking things out. This is a way for us to keep tabs on whether our various information outlets are actually communicating the right things. If you have a lot of calls, there's some challenges there, and our team keeps a close eye on this. The other thing you can see in the top corner here is about 1/3 of our calls came in through the IVR. That's the automated system where you can just punch buttons and get information. A little bit through Amtrak. We get voicemails, and then we can move those into customer service tickets, and then through the call center. Next slide. And this is my last slide. And just to say, we're continuing to, we are seeing an uptick. We did see some more negative comments this last quarter that we've seen, and that may be in part, we did change the schedule, and although some people love the new schedule, some people are impacted individually by it. I've talked to some folks myself directly about that, and we appreciate that it doesn't work for everyone, and we do our best to accommodate as many as we can with the service that we have available. So with that, I'll pause and take any questions.
Thank you. I see Director Saltzman has her hand up.
A lot of exciting updates. I was really pleased when I read all of this over the weekend and saw the week-by-week ridership numbers, which I don't think we've seen in quite some time. I know we get the monthly financial reports, which have a ridership overview, but it's not as digestible. So I just wanted to see if you could start sending out that chart in the monthly updates we get, because I know it'd be an easier way for me to understand where our ridership numbers are in real time. I think it's important, and I'm thrilled to hear that there was an even bigger bump in ridership when service which increased, which isn't surprising. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's it. We will do that. And if there's interest in other stuff in that monthly performance report that we send out, please reach out to one of us and we'll be happy to make modifications to that. That's a good suggestion.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Any other questions on the managing director's report? Seeing none, Rob, you can wrap up.
Yeah, so I have under items 8 and 9, just a list of projects that are in progress and completed. I'll be happy to take questions on any of those topics.
Any questions on items 8 or 9? Work completed or work in progress? I don't see any, and that would bring us to item 6, which is board director reports. Do any of you have an item for the good of the cause? Mr. Rayburn?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
I see Spearing is next.
I attended a Alameda County Board of Supervisors meeting to consider a request from the City of Oakland and the Oakland A's regarding cost sharing on the Howard Terminal project. It was an extra inning affair. It lasted 7.5 hours. The conclusion is to not make a decision until after the City of Oakland, which is slated to make a decision on their term sheet on July 20th. The tentative date would be sometime in September for the county. And by the way, they are not very keen on being dragged back into handling sports. That's not their purview, and they were glad to get out of sports before. But I think this is an opportune time to buttress our arguments. I heard the A's president make a comment that there are no showstoppers in the EIR, and I'm sorry, but I beg to differ, and that significant unmitigated crossing incidents are not do follow in the path of showstoppers, and the sole mitigation in the EIR is deemed ineffective. So we need to make our case and make it loudly with the county supervisors as well as with the city council.
Thank you. Rob, would you remind us of the status of our review of the environmental impact report?
Yeah, we did submit a formal comment letter and in lots of detail express our concerns about some of the analysis that was done and offered to work closely in partnership to try to identify some specific improvements. Obviously, Union Pacific is the owner of the right-of-way, and I believe has also submitted comments as well and made the same offer. We did not hear from the team through the course of the environmental review.
This was a matter on our agenda at our last meeting, and any of us can take a look at the documents from that. So thank you, Mr. Rayburn, for keeping us in the loop. Mr. Spearing, you have a report?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor Price and I participated in a groundbreaking yesterday in Fairfield for 199 affordable housing units that are part of the train station specific plan, the Hannigan Station. And you know, that plan is finally coming to fruition. There's several thousand homes that are being built, and all around this train station, it's all being integrated into the train station itself. And the developers promoting the Amtrak service. One of the surveys showed that many of the people that want to buy in that area are looking for public transit, and the Capitol Corridor was part of that. And we're exploring micro transit. So if somebody's riding a train and they need to get picked up to go, you know, we're going to have a geo fence within this area that there'll be a ride for them. And so that's all being advanced here in the county. But I just want to report that we used MTC's HIP program, that's Housing Incentive Program. They allocated $4 million to Solano County for 2 affordable housing projects. But this one, you can actually see the train station from the apartments, which is really exciting and all affordable. So I just want to report that, Mr. Chairman.
Great, great, exciting. Congratulations. Any other reports? I see Mr. Price is also clapping in this little square on the screen. So congratulations, Harry.
So thank you very much. Supervisor String did an absolutely incredibly invaluable presentation yesterday that just has everybody in the area now excited about the train station, the Fairfield, Vacaville, Hannigan stations. And the vision of that dream is a reality now that is making the lives for so many of our residents much happier. So thank you very much.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Any other reports? I don't see any. So that brings us to item 7, which is public comment. Jackie, do we have anyone requesting to address the board?
We do not.
All right. Very good. Any written comments received?
No additional comments came in by email.
Okay. Very good. So that brings us to adjournment. Our next meeting will be September 15th, 2021.
Pardon me, Don.
I'm sorry.
This is Alan Miller.
Hi, Alan. Hold on.
My
just a second.
apologies.
Hold on just a second. We're looking, so you'd like to address us in public comments. I think you have 3 minutes to do that, Alan. It's good to see you.
Yes, thank you, Don. I want to make clear I'm speaking today as a citizen of Davis and not in a professional capacity. I'm on break and I'm off the clock. For 30 years, the eastbound Capitol Corridor trains do their usual toot toot when they start to move out of the station. And normally by FRA rules, 2 horn soundings when leaving stations and 1 short horn sounding entering the station and activating the bell. However, around February 1st, eastbound trains followed this by a long extended blast of 1 to 3 seconds, about 10 to 15 seconds after leaving the station. I could see no work crews or any reason for this. As this continued with most trains from that date forward, I started asking around, but I couldn't get any answers. By the way, my house is located 200 feet from the east end of the Davis platform. The neighbors started asking me, what's up with the train horns? And I said, I don't know. And my poor neighbor, who's only 100 feet from the end of the platform, said that he now runs inside and hides from the trains in the morning. And then I started noticing that the engineers were making apologies on the radio for what they called automatic train horns and blasting the passengers when there are work crews in the area. And so I looked into this and I found that the trigger sequence is activated by PTC, but that doesn't make any sense because there's no crossing. So why is this happening? After talking to numerous people, I finally found that the 5 platforms in the Davis station are now designated as highway crossings by PTC programming. The engineers know how to sound the horn so as to minimize the sound, but the computer just turns the valve on and blasts from 1 to 3 seconds. In fact, 524 this morning sounded 2 6-second long full horn blasts at the end of the platform. I could simulate that with my voice, but the point is it would be very annoying. When the trains are on track 2 furthest from the station, they don't do this because they don't cross those platforms, but about 70 to 80% of the CCJPA trains use track number 1. Additionally, because the horns blast mid-platform, they are, as those are not designated, they blast right next to passengers' ears, just feet away. I saw a little kid start screaming and crying, even though he already had his ears covered. The sound was so loud. And so the irony of this is that I like the sound of train horns. That's why I live here. But after 30 years, I have now been awakened many times by the Capitol Corridor morning trains when I haven't been awakened by a train horn in decades. These platforms have never been considered highway crossings by the engineers. And because of simply how a computer is programmed, I suddenly find myself 200 feet from a highway crossing that doesn't exist. I know this isn't on CCJPA. It's very complicated. It appears it is programmed into the PTC program by diagrams UP provides that show these as highway crossings. And what it probably comes down to is liability. A lawyer saying, well, what if we don't program these and somebody gets hit?
Alan, thank you.
I'm on my last paragraph here. 3 sentences. I'd appreciate it if CCJPA looks into this and sees if there's a way to take care of these crossings out of the PTC programming. Otherwise, I have to deal with UP and FRA, and I don't look forward to dealing with that bureaucracy. Ironically, there was one of those horns.
Good timing.
Thank you very much, Don.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And Rob, can we talk about this offline and see if there's an avenue to identify the issue and see if there's something we can do?
Sure, we'll be happy to do that.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in September, hopefully in person. And nice meeting, Rob. Thanks for all the work.
In Oakland.
In Oakland. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Looking forward to it.
Good job.